This is Doctor Talks, real talk from real doctors on the issues that matter to you most.
Hello and welcome to the Reversing Alzheimer's Summit. I'm one of your hosts, James Maskell, and I'm super excited to welcome someone who's on the cutting edge of the conversation about Alzheimer's, the causes, some of the new innovative tools, and really creating the kind of transformation that we'd love to see here. So a warm welcome to Dr. Cheng Ruan. He is the founder of Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine. He's also doing incredible things in the Houston area to bring new understanding to the understanding of the interplay of energy medicine, functional integrative medicine, as well as some awesome leading edge technology. So we're grateful to have you here, Doc.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having me. Appreciate it.
There's a few things that I want to make sure that everyone who listens to our summit knows that I think you have sort of unique access to. And I guess one of the first things I wanted to check in on is, when we've had conversations about this before, I think you're aware through your care and the work that you're doing, some of the causes of Alzheimer's disease and cognitive decline that you may not hear about, out there in the world. And this is through obviously seeing a lot of cases and working with it. So what are some of the unlikely causes that you've seen that maybe aren't on people's radars?
Yeah, so just off the top of my head, like some of the biggest misses by far are infections that are really, really close to the brain. So this could be chronic sinus infections that people thought were just allergies. This could be mass dental infections, periodontal infections, and stuff like that. So the reason is because we know that specific organisms, at the end of the day, it shares different systems, such as detox systems, with our brain. And that is anything that's connecting the brain down to our thorax or chest right here, physically can cause any restrictions and decrease either blood flow, lymphatic flow, or glymphatic flow, which is basically the immune system of the brain itself. And if anything, so it becomes a plumbing problem. So if anything decreases that or gunks up that becomes an issue, such as sinus infections, dental infections, and stuff like that. So we already know, for example, that P. gingivalis and other different types of organisms that we found in teeth and other organisms that are in sinuses end up being in these plaques that we find in people with Alzheimer's disease, which are amyloid plaques and tau protein and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, like your dental hygiene, your sinus hygiene is extraordinarily important to prevent the progression of disease. But at the same time, that infection itself could be the one that's causing memory issues. So in my practice, we use EEGs, which are basically electrodes that we have on the brain, to look at the patterns that are there. And we're able to tease out some patterns on the EEG that's correlating with these infections, causing a lot of sleep disruptions and stuff like that. So that's number one, infections near the brain. Number two, anything that causes a decrease of dumping of lymphatics from the head down. So it could be something as simple as posture. So your posture is very much this way, your head's very much this way. It actually impedes the flow of the lymphatics coming down from the head down, right?
Yeah.
And also some people have dental issues where their bite is a bit crooked, and that causes a lot of head and neck strain, right? That causes posture issues. That is actually one of the hallmarks of chronic brain atrophy, which is basically brain shrinkage. Another part is what we call tech neck. And these days, everyone's on their phones looking this direction. So we call it the forward head posture, as the head is coming more forward. We're seeing that becomes issues. And once again, that has to do, it's a bit of a plumbing problem, not just a plumbing problem, it's a bit of a plumbing problem where the lymphatics within the head and neck has to be drained downwards in order for detoxification to occur. So that's a big one. Posture is huge when it comes to cognitive issues, right? And the third one that's most commonly missed is a bit of a combination between the first one and the second one, which is environmental toxins. So Dr. Dale Bredesen published the Inhalation Alzheimer's, talking about environmental toxins causing issues with brain development and ultimately brain shrinkage, we call atrophy, which correlates with memory loss. But a lot of the ways that we deal with environmental toxins are trying to improve the flow of the lymphatics from the brain sort of downwards, right? And so this could be mold exposure or water damage home. This could be we had a patient with a freshly painted in the kitchen and started having some severe memory issues shortly after that, because there's a lot of volatile organic chemicals that are basically going into the air from the kitchen and stuff like that, right? Or it could be as simple as chronic allergies. So we have a patient who basically has a lot of allergies to horses. He ended up moving from Kansas down to Texas on a horse ranch with his daughter and developed major cognitive issues. But when he's away from that, he's actually a lot more awake and talkative. So even the chronic allergies, if prolonged enough, we can consider those environmental toxins as well. So be best friends with your allergist or ENT doctor and stuff like that is not a bad idea. And we want to get to the root of memory loss as soon as possible. But those are the top three I think people are missing the most.
Yeah, I think those are great. And I could see how all those could actually like interact with each other. So like, I know for my father, one of the things that was with him, obviously there was a mold thing. So that was key. But then I think it was getting him all junked up and sinusy. And that was, there. It's interesting. You said like proximity to the brain. It's
Yes,
like what you're saying is like the brain is in sort of like a flow system of in and moving things out. And when things get stuck, it's more likely to go sideways.
absolutely. So let's imagine that our skull is a series of caves, and these caves are called sinuses, all right? So the sinuses have a very important job into our whole body. 85% of a type of nitrogen gas called nitric oxide is created or manifested, if you will, by the actual sinuses, air moving through the sinuses. And so nitric oxide depletion can cause memory issues, shrinkage, ADD, ADHD, depression, anxiety, et cetera, right? So what happens is that's air moving in these caves. So in the sinuses have a cover on it called the mucosa. And then just below the cover, you have the submucosa. So there's a lot of nerve endings that actually goes into the sinuses, similar to the teeth as well. So these are branches of what's called the trigeminal nerve. And trigeminal nerve is kind of like my hand on the side of my face. There's different branches that branch out right here, okay? And so there's specific branches that go into these sinuses and go into the front four teeth right here in the maxilla, even part of the mandible. And they're sensory nerves, so they're sensing that something is wrong. So if you have mold, that sends something is wrong. So what it does is goes back into this part of the brain called the hypothalamus, and it shuts off the regulation of another nerve called the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the nerves that calms you down, and we're designed to do this because this is how we sense danger. So if you have chronic sinus issues, dental infections, your brain's danger signal's always on. What that does is that because the vagus nerve gets kind of cut off, a lot of things happen to the body. Heart rate becomes dysregulated, blood pressure becomes dysregulated, which is a term we call dysautonomia. Your gut microbiome changes rapidly just like that. You're not even able to get into deep sleep very much. So a lot of sinus obstruction or even dental infections causes really improper sleep. And we know that proper sleep is required for the brain to really heal itself, right? At the end of the day, all clinicians know, like if you hack the sleep, you hack the body. And so if there's any sinus issues and these caves are kind of gunked up with mucus and it's not making this nitric oxide and the nerves going back to the brain and saying, hey, something's wrong, danger mode, we kind of have to listen to it. Now the question is, well, how do you know it's doing that? Well, a lot of times we look at somebody and they have these dark circles in the eye. We call it allergic shiners. Maybe it's a little baggy, right? And then a lot of times their eyes almost look sunken in. And they have TMJ issues because their body is telling the muscles of the jaw to clench, to open up these airways, right? And as you're clenching and as you're trying to open up these airways, if it's not enough, then you can get like a lot of TMJ problems, clenching, grinding. Your dentist can even say wear marks on the teeth. Those are huge issues to be taken care of immediately. Some people have obstructive sleep apnea where the airway gets so obstructive and it causes airflow velocity issues. And obstructive sleep apnea is a huge portion of the population that have a lot of these memory issues, right? So these are like physical things that we have to make sure that we treat right away before things, get worse. I mean, the whole summit is called Reversing Alzheimer's, but part of the reversibility is making sure that you're actually getting air to your brain. Your body's getting the signals to the vagus nerve to actually work so the organs can work, the gut can work, and everything becomes a happy marriage.
That's awesome. Well, you got so much great info, and I know that you see a high volume of patients and super big fan of everything you're doing there at Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine. If you're in the Houston
So,
area, you're in for a treat. And if you're inside Texas, I know that deal with so many patients there, and I highly recommend it. I really want to touch into some of the cool solutions because you always on the cutting edge. And we haven't really had anything on this summit about anything with related to like energy medicine. Obviously, you can
yeah.
see things like vagus nerve interaction is kind of energy medicine in a certain way. But yeah, share with us a little bit about some of the things that you're excited about in on the cutting
Yes.
treating.
Absolutely. So recently we added a new department to the program that's run by a neurologist called Synaptic. Synaptic is the branch, is our neurology division at Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine, where we serve the population that's in assisted living and memory care facilities. And so what we're doing for them is we're providing the latest technologies and data and research on what actually moves the needle in improving the quality of life and improving cognition. So my favorite thing really in the last 2 years is looking at frequency-based therapeutics. So a couple years ago, there's ultrasonic frequency therapies are approved for Parkinson's, and now they're approved for Alzheimer's disease, right? And these are done in sort of the educational institutions. Now this is widely there. But what we do know is that whenever you're looking at frequency-based therapeutics, anything around the 40 hertz, which is a sound frequency, is able to not only improve cognition, but also improve the folding of these proteins, the amyloid plaque that we actually see, right? Now, ultrasonic frequency therapy has been used for a whole lot of different things. Even some ENTs use to break up mucus in the sinuses, right? And so perhaps there's a mucus busting effect, and perhaps there's a vibrational effect where it's allowing the cerebral spinal fluid, which is the fluid that bathes the brain, to move a lot more readily, and therefore you're dumping a lot of toxins in. But we're seeing that this energy-based or frequency-based medicine is coming into fruition quite a bit. There's something new, and maybe by the time the summit's actually released, it'll be FDA approved. It's actually specific sets of devices that are focused on a combination of sound and something called near infrared. So near infrared, you kind of see these gadgets all over the internet right now. One of them is called the Mendy, and it's a $250 device. Is using infrared to improve the blood flow to the frontal lobe. Like, it's developed by NASA and another Swedish company. So we're seeing all these self-help improvement devices that's on the market right now, and actually a lot of it is really improving cognitive function. But some of it is going through FDA trials right now with specific medical devices that are coming out. So I think 2025 is a really exciting year for cognitive decline and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So what we are doing is whatever is coming out, we want to be able to have it and provide non-pharmaceutical therapeutics or frequency-based training for the people with cognitive issues. So on the Synaptic, our program, Synaptic, the Synaptic program we have is designed to do this. Let's get people with cognitive issues at certain facilities to access this and then work with them over time to see improvements. But what we're also doing is that we're doing group visits with them as well. So we're doing group visits with them on a sound frequency training. So some people call that sound healing, right? We have Tai Chi, Qigong, and we know Tai Chi and Qigong and breathwork modalities actually can significantly impact cognitive decline. Not only just decrease the progression, but dramatically reduce the mental health issues that are surrounding cognitive issues right now.
Yeah.
And so these programs are something that we've done for a number of years. We just put them into the assisted living and memory care facility, but the outcomes are actually really good. And my hope is to get more group programs in the US and North America covered by insurance so that we're able to continue on with this.
That's super cool. So how do you expect that to happen? You expect like assisted living to
Yeah.
get the machines and you do it, you can do it there, or does it have to be done by a doctor?
No, it's got to be done by clinicians. So the
Okay.
assisted living facilities just provide this space, and we provide basically everything else. And so what happens then is that assisted livings and independent living and memory care already have programs such as this, but rarely is it direct focus specifically for cognitive decline or dementia and stuff like that, like ours is, right? And so, for example, we just did a patient where I was looking at their mapping data. We can say, hey, we increase your blood flow to the frontal lobe this percentage compared to the last time that we did it, which is a week ago. And this is where we think the progression is going. I think that's really the new age of improving cognitive function. For the folks that are listening at home, I think this is a good opportunity to understand that a lot of the new technology that's coming out that is based on these meditation machines, different headbands and stuff like that, there's a lot of science that's actually behind that. And because these things are getting more expensive in the consumer market, they're still great to do, but we're seeing this new giant shift towards sort of these FDA-approved products on the back end being developed, and I think it's gonna be really, really good because the initial data is good, and these are actually medical devices that are coming out. So I'm really, really hopeful.
That's really cool. You mentioned Tai Chi and Qigong. I'd love to see the average assisted living or memory care place or senior living, like with 50 people out on the grass doing it together like you'd see in China. What do you think the chances are of a cultural shift of that size and scale?
Yeah, James, we already did it 2 weeks ago. It was our first day. We had our initial few people sign up in these, actually both of them are memory care facilities, and then we have a breathwork and Tai Chi Qigong master on staff who's actually a certified health coach himself. And it's health coach led, group systems and group therapies. And so it's something that I've dreamed about for such a long time. And I think 2 weeks ago it finally happened. It was really fun to get the feedback from people and the family members as well. Anything to reduce the loneliness and isolation and give the sense of dignity and also give the sense of just feeling significant on a day-to-day basis for them is already like quite difficult. But when you provide something like that in a group community, it's really fun to watch.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more. I mean, obviously, this is an area where we've had a lot of agreement and innovation together. Like, it seems to me that like the community and having the right community around you is the
Yes.
number one thing that you can do to reverse. Because ultimately, even through this whole summit, it's like the harder the thing to do is, the more likely that you'll do it consistently if you have some sort of support, right?
Yeah, I think is we see that people heal much better in groups than one-on-one visits with a doctor or even with a health coach actually or a dietitian. And it has to do with this mentality of I am not here alone. And because you can interact with other people, not only is the compliance higher, which I don't like to use that word compliance, let's just call it excitement. Not only is the excitement for this much better, you're using the community as a source of healing. And we see over and over again in multiple longitudinal data, especially the VA data, seeing that community-based or group-based therapies is good for pretty much all the chronic disease states. So we know that loneliness and isolation is the number one risk factor when it comes to all-cause mortality, so death from any causes, right? And a lot of times in our group sessions, in fact, I'm in a room right now because my main room is used in the Tai Chi group right now. Like I see them and they're happy. A lot of times, for a lot of them, the only time they get to really interact with people at this deep, meaningful level is in our facility, right? And so because of that, you're creating this community and you're creating this bond. And one of the coolest part about like what we do is a lot of the things that people are saying, we're able to capture that information and build upon it. So I'll give you a really good example, James. We had this patient that comes in, a Korean War veteran, and lost his spouse about 11, 12 years ago. And then it's someone I've known for a very long time. And he's saying that, well, not only is my mood better, my memories and attention seems to getting better. I'm more engaged with the people around me. And the people around me say that I actually look younger. And he's like, you know what? I feel like this mask is kind of lifted off and I don't have to like just be so harsh and protect myself anymore, right? And the guy's over 90 years old. It's really fun to actually hear something like that. It makes a huge impact on our community. And another really interesting fact is that hospitalizations and ER visits are actually less in the group visits. And so if people come together in a group, we're able to not just get more access to them on a weekly basis. When someone that's been showing up for 5 weeks in a row, all of a sudden week number 6 and 7 not showing up, someone's going to be reaching out. Like our team's like, hey, what's going on, right? So we look for inconsistencies that are there. And believe it or not, a lot of times we have found people that required a lot of emergent services, right? But over time, what happens is people feel like they're in a group, their immune function gets better, their need for hospitalization goes down, and as you see the group grow, there's people who may be 1 to 2 years ahead of the new people coming in, and they're providing that community support. It's almost like the chain like keeps moving, right? The legacy kind of keeps moving for them, and it gives them a sense of tremendous amount of purpose in the groups. And I think that's something that's really, really fun to watch over the last 8 years that we've been doing groups.
Awesome. Well, look, I think you got so much to add for obviously doing this so effectively and that. I guess what I'd love to do, just because it's you and I know you and I know how much you think about these things, this summit is called Reversing Alzheimer's, and ultimately, we hope that there's some scale that can really come to this. And I guess I just maybe finish off by just maybe you sharing a vision of what do you think healthcare would have to look like in order to really turn the corner here. I mean, obviously everywhere you're seeing the numbers are going up, it's getting earlier, it's getting worse. What would it look like in the sort of in the end state where we have a health system that is able to help people either avoid Alzheimer's altogether or only have to deal with it at the very end of their life? What do you see that would have to happen for that to work?
Yeah, good question. I think with Alzheimer's and memory loss, a big part of it is how complex it is, right? But there's one piece of technology that can make very complex ideas come to life, and that's artificial intelligence. And I've been working with AI for a very long time, and looking how AI is able to analyze the patient histories and documentation. Even the AI actually on the front end can even quote unquote talk to the patients now, right? It's able to ask things such as, "Hey, how's your teeth been? Any bleeding gums?" Right? Bleeding gums is a huge, huge question there. That should be part of every neurological assessment. Do you have any bleeding gums? And these periodontal issues can cause a lot of cognitive decline. And then what is the mental health like? We now know, and this is February 2025. We now know that a lot of people are more comfortable talking to an intake AI than they are talking to their doctor. We now know that's the thing. Before it was sort of a mystery. And so whenever we're looking at people talking into the AI or typing, we can get information from them, the family members, other historians, basically people able to provide the history, right? And we're able to see a lot of different points of view, and that gives us the ability to analyze that large amount of data. Plus, the AI is also absorbing information from their medical records, hospitalizations, right? What was the last MRI? What was the last PET scan, et cetera, right? And other records from the neurologist, from the psychiatrist, whatever it is, right? And so this large amount of information used to be very taxing and overwhelming for clinicians. Now we like it because the more we can get into the AI, the more we can ask the AI to retrieve some of this information, how it really applies to the patient. And so it's going to make something that's drastically too complex to execute on, something that's a lot easier in bite-sized chunks. And that's what we've been seeing, right? So imagine this. Imagine that, let's say you have a family member that has Alzheimer's disease, and is maybe not talking very much, and you can get access to an app or an AI that says, "Hey, tell me the story, like what's been going on." And you have no time limitations with the AI. You can tell the story for an hour and a half if you want to, right? All that information gets compartmentalized and extracted so that when you actually meet the doctor, they're able to already have so much information that's there, and you spend a lot of times on figuring out like what's next. So drastically reduces the cost of care, improves implementation. On the back end, what happens is that because the AI knows this person's information, it's able to track longitudinally, meaning, hey, how did the person do? What was the MRI like a few months later, right? So what happens is that we as doctors can go into it and say, "Hey, how's this patient been doing?" Like literally talking to it, like it's Jarvis or something, right? How's this patient been doing? And extracting that information. So it lets us know, are we going on the right track? There's just something that we have to pivot, move, and change. And that's the only way I can think, like moving forward, how we can, practice medicine. So for those of you who are terrified of AI, I agree, there's a bit of a terror to it because sometimes it can be unpredictable. But what I'm saying is AI is already used in multiple other industries. I think doctors are a little bit late to the game, but using it for retrieving the information, understanding it, and executing on it, I think has to be where the future is going. Arguably, it has to be where the present is going.
Awesome. Well, Doc, I really want to appreciate you for sharing your wisdom here on the Reversing Alzheimer's Summit. I feel a lot more excited and happy about the future, knowing that there's pioneers like yourself doing it, and it's going to take a big team to execute on it. I think what we've hearing on this summit is all the different, clinical leading edge insights to help any person avoid it for themselves or their family. But ultimately, it is going to take, the building of a new system. And I think you've got a lot of the elements there that you're already working with. And yeah, just wanted to thank you for being on the cutting edge. I know it's not always easy to try new things and do those things, but I know a ton of value gets delivered to everyone from all of your innovation. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, James. Appreciate you having me on. I appreciate it.
This has been the Reversing Alzheimer's Summit. I'm one of your hosts, James Maskell. If this was interesting to you and you have someone in mind that you think may have a hidden dental infection, or maybe, some of this information is useful, make sure to forward it to them and check out some of the other sessions happening today and tomorrow on the summit. We got great speakers all week. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to Dr. Talks. We hope today's episode has enlightened and inspired you on your path to optimal health. Each day is a new opportunity to make choices that empower your well-being. For more insights and strategies, subscribe to our podcast and visit our website, www.drtalks.com. Stay connected, stay healthy, and join us next time on Dr. Talks. Real talks from real doctors on the issues that matter to you most.